my video last week, I did a pretty big rearranging of my Disney pin collection because I had run out of room and I needed more pin board space. And while doing that rearranging and kind of moving around pins, kind of got me thinking, do I really need all of these pins? Particularly the ones in some of my smaller side collections. I'd say especially when you're earlier on in pin collecting, it's tempting to just get and kind of keep any and everything cool. And over time, you tend to focus your collections a little bit more. So I've come to the point where I have pretty focused collections, and I do have some scattered side collections where I still do like the pins, but do I really need all of the pins just for the sake of having them? What I thought would be fun for today was to do a little Love It or List It Disney Pin Edition. If you aren't familiar with the show Love It or List It, it's on HGTV, and the basic concept is that there are homeowners that get their house renovated, and they have to decide whether they're going to love their house, meaning that they're going to stay there, or they're going to list it. So they're going to move away from their house and put it up for sale. I thought the same concept would work perfectly for Disney pins with the ones that are in my more peripheral side collections. Do I love it or do I list it? As in list it for trade or possibly sale. Now the one caveat with Love It or List It is that about 90% of the time, it seems, the homeowners just choose to love the house. Because if you have something that's like decently well remodeled, or hence a rearranged Disney pin collection, you know, why change it, why move if you don't have to? However, there are some who do choose to list it, or at least they at that times show the list it ending. It's debatable how real the show actually is, but there can also be benefits to listing it. So if I list some of these pins in my collection that I'm not super in love with, maybe I can use them as traders to get pins that I really do like. So I think a good key with pin collecting is you don't have to just have all the pins for the sake of having pins. Have the ones that you really like. But let's get on and figure out whether I'm going to love or if I'm going to list these pins. I'm going to start over here with my little Beauty and the Beast pin collection. It's one of my small collections that's just on these cork trivets, and I do really like Beauty and the Beast, but as I've said, I'm not really a princess person. I always prefer everything like Minnie Mouse or even Fab Five, and I don't feel a super strong attachment to the princesses, although Belle is my favorite princess, hence why I do have a number of pins for Belle. So I think that this is a collection that I can definitely kind of spare down a little bit. These two pins up at top, I definitely say I'm gonna love them. They're gonna stay. They're Belle in her blue dress and they're when she's reading a book. So I really like that. My mom was a librarian, so anything literature related. And they're also Belle in less conventional outfits. I also really like these two pins. I love the classic stained glass rose. And this pin is really cool because this is actually from Singapore and it's technically a limited edition. These two pins here are definitely going to have to stay because my parents included them in their picks for their favorite Disney pins from my pin collection. So then that kind of gets to things that I think I could list. So I definitely think I could list this Belle. This is a significantly older pin, and I got it because I found it on eBay for relatively cheap. And it's a nice pin, but it's not my favorite depiction of Belle, and I think this would be better suited for somebody who really is a Beauty and the Beast collector. Then we have this pin of Belle. I think this was from like a lanyard set or some sort of booster set, and Belle is very pretty. But if you look back on this cork board, that Belle is the same pose as the tassel pin. So I don't think I really need to have another one where it's the same pose. And I also am not as big of a fan of like glamour Belle, because this is very much like glamour Barbie Princess Belle. This is a pin that I'm kind of torn on whether to love it or list it. It's a Belle from the Birthstone series. And this is perfect because my birthday is in November and November is Belle, but this was just kind of a weird series. The faces do look a little bit weird. So it's like this one, it has a little bit of meaning. I do think that we are going to list this one. I'm now looking at this pin, and this pin does have very similar artwork to this pin, which is a lot cooler. But I think I am going to love this one and keep it because I do like how Belle looks in this. She does look like herself, I'd say, and less of the glamour version. So this one I think is worth keeping. Now we have a Lumiere and Mrs. Potts and Chip pin. And if I'm just kind of keeping things mainly Belle with a little bit of Beast, I don't know if I necessarily need or want the side characters. This was from the Beauty and the Beast New Fantasyland mystery pin set. But again, I think I can list this one for trade. It can go to a better home. And then I have this Lumiere pin where it says, "Try the gray stuff. It's delicious." So this is a pretty nice pin. I did get it at my Disney Store outlet, hence why I have it. And I almost feel like this would be kind of cool in maybe if I put it in my food collection. So it's kind of food related. So this is going to be a love, but I'm going to move it. And so now this is what my Beauty and the Beast collection is down to, which I'm totally happy with. It's not something that, it's really my focus, but I'm happy with the ones that I have, and that also means there are room for other new pins. So I know I just did like a whole rearranging, but this was my super miscellaneous board that I didn't have room for. Now I think I can take these 3 princess themed pins that I have on there and put it with the Beauty and the Beast pins to kind of bring the princesses together. But while I have the camera way up here, it's this center pin that I kind of am considering listing. It is a WDI pin, and WDI pins are always very hard to come across. And so I kind of cherish whenever I can get a WDI pin. But as you can see, I've put it with, my total miscellaneous pins. So I don't know if it's getting the best home. It is the castle at Shanghai Disneyland, so it was part of a whole Shanghai poster series when that park was opening. So I think that this may be better as a WDI LE trader. And I think I might list it, but I might also come back and change my mind. We'll see. Now, I wasn't planning on showing anything from this pin board because this is all the Wally pins that I just put on this brand new board, but then I remembered I have these Tsum Tsum pins, and I'm kind of getting rid of any of the Tsums I still have in my collection because I just really don't like them, and especially Wally looks so weird as a Tsum Tsum. They have these emoji pins over here, which I very much prefer because Wally looks like something. But these 2 Wally pins, we are going to list them. Next, I wanted to take a look at these pins that I all actually had in a Eat-A bag that I really just used for storage. So these pins are never really out and seen. And I feel like I can list a decent number of these. I do definitely love the Shanghai Disney Resort Grand Opening pin. It is such a pretty pin. So this is one that I am definitely going to love and keep. But down here, I have some Disney wedding related pins. I had gotten these because I'd gotten them from a sale a long time ago for super cheap. And I've always been really into Disney weddings, but it's kind of weird to have these super wedding specific pins and not be married. These pins specifically are rings that say Mr. and Mrs. on it. So I at least at the time kind of just imagined them as, Minnie and Mickey's wedding rings. But when I do get married, I think if I really wanted them, I could go back and get them or get something similar. But for right now, they're not really something that, I need in my collection, and they're pins that haven't been displayed or shown. These pins I am having a harder time debating with. They're actually both LE500s, and they're from Hong Kong Disneyland. They're from this really cool classroom and teacher series. I especially love this mini pin. I think all the details on it are so cool, and I do like it that it is a matching Minnie and Mickey set because that's what I really like to collect. I do really also love the glitter on them, but I feel like if I kept them in my collection, I'd kind of be keeping them just for the sake of having them, which is kind of what I'm trying to get away from. So I'm going to tentatively list these for now. I then have all these other kind of just little Minnie and Mickey related pins. They definitely are nice pins. I do like them, but I think most of these were ones that I had gotten for super cheap. Those might have been back when the Shop Disney Parks app used to do crazy pin sales. And then I'm not in love with either of those mini pins. So the fact that all these pins were kind of tucked away in an Eat-A bag made it a little bit easier to decide between loving them or listing them. All right, I'm jumping up to this pin board here, and I'm gonna start in this up corner. I think up for me is similar to kind of my Beauty and the Beast little pin collection, because I do really like the movie. I was kind of interested in maybe collecting it a bit more at first, but I think I'm fine with it kind of staying as a pretty small collection. The one things I'm definitely gonna list are these Tsum Tsums. These are Tsums that I kept because in the mystery pin opening I did, I think I had gotten them all. And so I thought it was kind of neat to have the whole set. But Tsums just really aren't doing much for me anymore. So they're definitely ones that I had just for the sake of having. But I do think I am going to love all the rest. This Russell and Doug pin is kind of on the edge, but I got it pretty recently and I like it well enough to love it. I know I've been hating on Tsum Tsums for a little bit, but let me show you the greatest ever Tsum Tsum, the Mike Wazowski one. That is how a Tsum Tsum should be. That works perfectly. This is the greatest Tsum Tsum pin and I love it. Pretty similar to my Up collection, I also have a little Toy Story collection. So I am not like a Toy Story collector, but I do like it enough where I've kind of decided I like having representative aspects. These are my two latest pins that I got. These are from Harvey's and I love them. I think they're so funny and clever. And then I like how I have a lot of the different characters represented. This is mainly just kind of geared toward Toy Story 1. And so while I do like the little green men, I don't feel like I need to have a whole bunch of pins for them. I think I'm kind of more than covered with what I have. So I think I might list this pin here. This pin is from Hong Kong Disneyland and it again is very nice and shiny and sparkly and glittery, but this was just an impulse buy in a live sale on Instagram. I personally feel that live sales on Instagram are not a good way to get pins. Although they may be entertaining to watch, you're going to be much more likely to impulse buy and overpay. It's much better to kind of like research pins and prices and look for the best deal as opposed to just jumping on something. So I think that I can list this one. It is a nice pin, but I don't really need it. And then I also don't know if I need two Pizza Planet logo pins. I got both of them from Box Lunch, but I don't know which one I like more. I might just hang on to both for a little bit longer and then eventually decide which one I want to list. But this solo Mickey pin up here is very similar to the pins that I had in the Eat a bag, where they are nice pins, but pins that I got kind of cheap, and they were just kind of ones that I have to have. So I think I can list that Mickey. Now this is where I have a lot of my matching sets of Minnie and Mickey pins. And one of the main keys when I initially did that was I wanted a Minnie and Mickey pair from each of the Disney parks. And this pair here is from Hong Kong Disneyland. So they're kind of themed as luggage tags and they are mystery pins. Now what I'm thinking is that I might actually list these pins and then love that matching Minnie and Mickey school teacher pair from Hong Kong Disneyland. These are ones I don't necessarily need and I do like the school teacher ones better. With my Tower of Terror pins here, there are actually some ones that I already cleared out the other week, and they were the Tsum Tsum Tower of Terror booster set. Again, those were ones that I got because, you know, new Tower of Terror pins, got them for pretty cheap, but they just look kind of like nothing. Most people have no idea that they are supposed to be themed to Tower of Terror and the Twilight Zone, because they're so nondescript. So those have already been cleared off my board and I've even just put them with my park traders for this summer. But I do have a few things to consider up here. You can see I already got in the brand new Galaxy's Edge pin. Like I've said, I'm not a Star Wars person, but I love new Disney theme park stuff. So I'm excited for the new land. But what I have over here are some California Adventure related pins, but extinct stuff. So I have this Superstar Limo pin. It's actually signed by somebody on the back and I don't know who it is. This pin is definitely a love, but I unintentionally have a now extinct California Screaming pin because the first time that I went and rode the ride, it was California Screamin', but it's now the Incredicoaster. So I just can have one other weird thing that's no longer existing. I've debated like it'd be kind of cool to start like an extinct DCA attraction collection, but I never went to DCA 1.0, so then that's kind of weird. So I feel like I might list California Screamin' because I just don't really need it. And then there's also this Bear Left pin, which is an older slogan or a sign from DCA 1.0. This again was a live sale impulse buy, so I think these two I can list, but that is a love. Next, we've come over to my Frozen collection here. And this collection, there's a number of pins that I just kind of, again, got to get. I do definitely like the movie Frozen, but I think I can be careful with the Frozen pins that I have. I think I actually am going to start off right away with deciding to list my big centerpiece Elsa there. But what I think I like is kind of an intermingling of Anna and Elsa. And I have another pin that it's not fitting on this board, but I want to use it as a centerpiece. So this is the pin that I really want as the centerpiece to my Frozen collection. It is also one of the biggest pins I have. It has to be the biggest pin I have. This is a fantasy pin that I got for really cheap, and I have no idea who the maker is. So if anybody knows who makes this pin, I've seen some others that are kind of in a similar mosaic design. I'd love to know, because they are huge. You can see there's a little pin on pin there, and just really pretty. And so I like it that it's Anna and Elsa together. I think this would be a lovely centerpiece for this collection. Pins that I know I do want to love and are sprinkled throughout are this little Frozen mystery set. There's an Anna and then an Elsa over there. And then I have all the rest at the bottom here. I am missing one. I think I'm missing a troll. So it'd be really nice to collect that, because I do think that this is a nice pin collection to have because it kind of nicely represents the movie. There's also some other pins I do think I want to love. So this is a pin from Tokyo Disneyland on an Elsa Frozen Fantasy. It does have a year on it, which I'm not too keen of, but I really like it because they're both together with Olaf and the Snow Geese. There's another one where they're both together with Sven and Olaf. And then I do also really like the nesting dolls of them. I think they're really cool together. There are some pins I think I can choose to list. So these 4 right here actually come from a booster set. And once again, I got them for pretty cheap from my Disney Store outlet. So it's kind of, might as well get them to keep them. But I think they're just okay. There's other pins that I like more. So I think these are all the pins I've decided to list. So this is the Anna inspired purse. It definitely is pretty, but I think I'm gonna prefer to have things of the actual visual characters, as I don't really need to keep the Grandpappy pin. You know, the trolls are okay in Frozen, but I don't think people are clamoring for trolls related items. There's this Elsa springtime pin, which actually is quite pretty, but it's the only spring-ish one that I have. And so I think I'm going to prefer to keep everything a little bit more wintry, and I can list this spring-themed one. Then there's this Elsa snowflake emoji. This is actually the one from Hong Kong Disneyland. I know there's a similar booster set. I'm not the biggest fan of the emoji style, although it is a nice quality pin, but not super in love with this one. Then there's this set of Anna and Kristoff pins. I think they might be from a lanyard starter set. They're both okay, but I really need to figure out what's going on with Anna's eyes because they're lacking a little bit of definition there. But I think these are all of the pins that I'm going to love from this collection. And then I think it'll be great to have this big Whopper pin as the centerpiece. All right, and I think there's only one other pin that I might want to list, and that is this really cool Ralph Breaks the Internet pin. It is from Disney Movie Club. I did point it out in my last video, and I do really like it. But this one really is just like a having to have pin, and I think I can list it for trade. So if there was a board that I did not show at all, that's because they are all love pins. They're ones that I don't even have to look at. They're collections that I don't really consider going through because they are ones that I've worked a lot to kind of deliberately get certain pins. So just looking at what things are like now, this is now was originally Beauty and the Beast pin board, and I added the few other princess pins that I have. So I think this all in all is pretty nice together. And this can, if I wanted to expand it anymore, be kind of more lightly princess themed, but I'm happy with that. And then this is my little Frozen board now. I love that jumbo pin in the center. I will just now have to find the final pin from that mystery set and organize it a little better, but I'm really happy with how things look. And here are all the pins that I went through and decided to list from my Disney pin collection. So I think I was able to clear out a decent amount. Again, it's not that I don't like these pins. I feel like they were just ones that I was holding on to just for the sake of having pins and having more pins. But if you can use the philosophy of don't hold on to something just to have it, because I can then use these as traders for pins that I really do like. And I can also really focus on collecting the things that really interest me. So I hope this was a somewhat interesting video. I know it probably would have made more sense if I just did this right when I was rearranging all my pins, but I consider the rearranging my pins was the equivalent of the home renovation in Love It or List It. And then at the end, you kind of decide, you know, in the new position with everything, do you really love it or do you want to list it? Hopefully this video can provide a little inspiration if you are trying to declutter or clear out your pin collection. I've also been trying to do like as interesting themed or idea videos as I can, since it's super easy to make a video just like opening mystery pins or opening pin mail. So I've been trying to come up with as creative ideas as I can, and then also like just unboxing mystery pins is really expensive. And then of course you'll probably end up with pins that you're not super in love with. So I've been trying to kind of delve in and find other creative ways of, you know, showing pin trading and pin collecting, and how you can have fun with things even when you don't live near the Disney parks. But thanks for watching!